Hello and welcome to another episode of Certified Forgotten. We are not having, well, we're having a guest episode this week, but it is not the usual type of guest episode. Molly is not bringing a movie with 10 or less critic reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, but we both did share a wonderful time at South by Southwest, and we saw a lot of movies, and we got a lot to talk about. So I figured with Mr. Monagle not around this week and a little chance to talk about what's coming out in the future and what we can put on your radar, why not have a little fun with that? So, number one, Molly, thank you once again for joining us on the podcast, and thank you for helping me out with a little South by recap.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was my first South by Southwest, so I'm very excited to talk about some of the films that we saw.
What was, before we get to the films, because it was your first South by Southwest, what was your general kind of feeling of the festival? Because I've been doing this for over a decade and I kind of like
Mhm.
it's old hat, but what do you think about it? What was your experience like? What was your favorite thing non-movie wise?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a different experience because typically when I go to Austin, it's for Fantastic Fest, which is a very different vibe. It was just so much more chaotic, but not necessarily in a bad way. Just because it's a lot more spread out. There's a lot more interactive stuff and like freebies and food and drinks and all these different events going on as well as the films. It was overwhelming, but like I said, not in a bad way. But honestly, aside from seeing the films, I'd say my two favorite things, or actually three favorite things. One was the food that we had there. I had so many different kinds of tacos from different places while we were there, and they were all so good. Um, so that was a lot of fun, especially the place where we got the watermelon agua frescas. Oh my god.
Oh, Veracruz, yes. For anyone
Yes.
listening in the Austin area, Veracruz, you know very well, I'm assuming.
Yes, those agua frescas, because I even did a search when I got home trying to find places because there's a local food truck that I go to that has pretty good mango ones, but that's it. And most places that I looked up don't even have a watermelon option, and I need it in my life.
Which is insane because it's like the easiest one. Like it's the most water
Yes.
based. It's the yeah. What I'm a watermelon stan myself, so that is that thing is everything to me.
Yeah, and they're massive too, which I love. And then obviously sharing an Airbnb with you was a fun experience. Fun story for everyone listening. I share an Airbnb with Matt and two other male film critics, and it was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath Airbnb apartment type place, and the three of them subconsciously, without discussing it, all decided to not use the same bathroom as me. So I got to have a bathroom all to myself while the three of them shared one. I thought that was hilarious.
We're not gonna subject you to any of the horrors that go on on our side. Plus, listen, it was your first South by. I wanted to make it the best
Yeah,
experience possible.
which I appreciated. It was very unnecessary. I was prepared to share, but I just thought that was really funny that it wasn't until towards the end of the fest that we talked about it. And you guys all were just like, yeah, we just kind of all started doing it without having a discussion.
Yeah, like it legitimately was subconscious. Like I none of us talked about it. It's what you said. It was so funny that you brought it up too and noticed it, and we all were like, "Oh yeah, we did that." It's just yeah, it's just a good thing to do.
So that was fun. And it was also just great having you as a guide, since, like you said, you've done South by Southwest many a time, and this was my first time. I don't think I would have survived without your help.
Listen, that's what I'm here for. I've relegated my use in this industry just to helping people through their first experiences and getting them going.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And then I'd say the third thing that I had a lot of fun with was the different after parties for the films as well. Not all of them were great, but there were a couple that were an absolute blast. That not only was it a fun venue, but they had good food and good drinks and stuff. Especially, we'll talk about the film later, but the Forbidden Fruits after party was phenomenal, and it was so much fun. And I, of the cast, the only person that I talked to was Lola Tung for like 2 seconds, just to say, "Hey, great job in the film." But I also got to meet Diablo Cody at that party, and she is amazing, and I love her, and she was super nice in person.
Yeah, it's the most like I mean, listen, it's the privileged press side of it. So this is the inside baseball, but that is why I like South by. I forget who I was talking to, but one of my friends while we were walking around was just like, "Yeah, once South by starts, if you do it right, you don't have to pay for a drink I mean, meals, yes. You can't just live on trays of little burgers and hors d'oeuvres being walked around. Like, you need substantial food. But, if you like to have a little fun, it is, if you plan it correctly, you will not pay for a drink because of after parties and stuff like that. And I think that it is such a unique South by feeling that it's 24/7, because like Fantastic Fest has that stuff, but it's not around all the time. And festivals
Mhm.
have different vibes. And, the thing about South by to me, it blends the business side with the, I would say, more social, and networking sounds too professional, but when we go to these festivals, like, we are having a good time. Like, I need time to decompress. We're all working super hard, and I think we gotta earn that, even if we didn't get our free tattoo.
Yes, ugh, I will forever be sad about that. But that's okay because I have gotten a free tattoo in Austin before. It was just for Fantastic Fest instead. But yeah, it is very nice because I do feel like with South by Southwest, even though you're seeing a lot of movies, there is also a lot of time to do things outside of that. And that was a huge difference for me from primarily going to Fantastic Fest, because in Fantastic Fest, basically from the second I leave my hotel until I go back to my hotel to go to bed, I am in the Alamo Draft House. I am only in the Alamo Draft House. I am eating nothing but Alamo Draft House food, which I enjoy well enough, but it's nice to have a little bit of variety, especially because both of these are pretty long fests. It's like a week long. So that's a lot of having the same food over and over again.
Yeah, which is crazy because it was 10. I mean, it's usually 10 days. So South by, this is the first year they've done 7 versus 10. So
Oh, okay.
tack 3 more days on there. That's usually how long it spreads out. And in those time periods, I would have to take a single day out of my schedule just to be like, I'm not seeing any movies. I'm not doing any work. Like, I need a break. Like, it's my one thing I
Yeah.
had to do. And I mean, the thing that I'll love, the change that South by made that I think a lot of other festivals should look at, is midnighters not starting at midnight and being
Oh my
over by
God.
like midnight. The 10 o'clock midnight slot being your last movie, it just lets us critics actually go home and write a little bit, and it lets you like actually go out after if you wanted to even meet someone for a single drink. Like, you still have time to
Mhm.
meet at midnight. So if any other festival heads are listening to this, I would very greatly urge you to take a look at the 10 o'clock midnight section.
Yes, when I saw that on the schedule, I was so happy because at some festivals, if I'm going to their midnighter one, I'm not even getting into bed until after 3 in the morning, which I'm used to it at this point for fest, but it's also nice not having to do that.
It is, again, we are very lucky to do what we do and be able to go to
Mhm.
festivals and watch movies and write about them, but it's so much work. And what you're talking about, going back at 2 a.m., getting in bed at 2:30, and like, I'm sitting there sometimes going, great, I have to pound a review out. So like, I'm not getting to bed till like 4 in the morning. It's just real nice when you don't have to wake up groggy as all hell and just fighting for your life trying to make it through the next day. But that's enough about the festival itself. We had a bunch of movies to watch. So I mean, I will kick it to you first, and we'll start here, and I'll just say, like, what was your favorite of the festival? What are we gonna talk about first?
I mean, this is probably going to be very obvious from discussions that we've had before this, but I think my favorite was probably Forbidden Fruits. It's just it was exactly what I expected it to be in a good way, and it was exactly what I needed right now. It's this very hyper femme, campy kind of combination of The Craft and Jennifer's Body, and it's also very clearly geared towards millennials, I feel like, even though it features some younger actors. Although I feel like a lot of them are, like, close to the 30-ish range, so they're probably closer to millennial age, but just like the whole like mall culture, which I feel like isn't really as much of a thing anymore. And I love all the funny fake names that they came up. Like, obviously, the main store is Free Eden, and it's very obviously supposed to be free people. There's the fake Auntie Anne's, which I think was that Sister Salts,
Yep,
I think is what they called it.
indeed.
Like, I love the funny fake names that they came up, and just the dialogue and writing, even though Diablo Cody didn't write it, she did produce it. It feels very much like a spiritual connection to her films because of the way it's written.
Yeah, I mean, the cast is fantastic in the roles. For me, it's Victoria Petretti as my
Yes.
favorite. She gets to play the Amanda Seyfried role in Mean Girls. Let's basically say of the Coven, because like, here's my thing with Forbidden Fruits. I liked it, but it definitely is what you said. It is
Mhm.
unapologetically The Craft meets Mean Girls in a mall.
Mhm.
Like that is what
Yeah.
it is, and that's what it's doing. And this is one of those instances where I think familiarity is a little bit of a hindrance on the film because we kind of know where this is going already. We know it's going to happen because it is so strictly following those rules, let's say. But then going right back to the cast, like they are all having so much fun.
Yes.
Like every one of them, like they all shine in their moments. That being named after the fruits and how that plays into their personalities, and I like Alexander Shipp, Lily Reinhart, Lola Tongue, as you said, like they all have their specific quirks, and
Mhm.
every one of them gets a chance to shine in specific moments. But again, I don't think anyone shines more than Pedretti, who is just
Yes.
bubbly and vivacious and playing the kind of just attractive character, but to the really exaggerated degree that is very comically endearing.
Yeah, it's such a different role for her than I have ever seen her do because she is playing this very like ditzy, very I'm going to use the term sex positive kind of character and like she wears this blonde wig, which I will say the one thing that I had an issue with in the film were the couple of wigs. They, especially Pedretti's, was there at times it looked fine, and other times it looked like it was made of straw. But she was so amazing because she completely embodied this character that's unlike anything I've ever seen her play before. But then at the same time, there's a scene where she has this monologue where she's just speaking to a mirror, and it is one of the most heartbreaking monologues I've ever heard. Like even we've seen her do heartbreaking in like Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor. And I think because she goes from being this happy-go-lucky character to then having this very serious moment, it made it so much more impactful. And that I was already in love with her performance, but that scene made me fall in love with her even more.
The Diablo codiness of it too is
Yeah.
unavoidable. Like it's in my review, it's everywhere. I think everyone's probably mentioned it at this point, and that is also like it's a compliment, but also I think a warning to some people because those who maybe don't go with that flow of dialogue and the way it is so referential over and over and over, it will be a little bit of a pain point, I think, for some. But I am one of those people that likes Diablo Cody's body of work. So like
Mhm.
for me, it was endearing, and for me, growing up in Jersey and malls being so important, it's funny to look at it as nostalgia because you're right. Like there are
Mhm.
generations now that have no idea what spending an entire day at the mall even is. I go
Yeah.
back to my mall in my hometown now, and it's a ghost town just to visit, and I'm like, it's missing this just like part of culture that was so kind of fun to be around in those moments, like going to FYE on a Tuesday when all the new movies drop and all the new CDs drop. You knew exactly when to go, exactly what was coming. I don't know. So I think that is the fun for me of Forbidden
Mhm.
Fruits. It's taking witchcraft and covens and tying it into consumerism and capitalist culture and how those
Yeah.
come together in this really, really an entertaining way.
Yeah, because it does kind of present the coven as sort of like this kind of faux feminism almost. Because they like are preaching about girl power and stuff like that, but at the same time, they're chanting about thigh gaps and stuff and like trying to control each other's lives to a certain extent. So it is a very interesting dynamic. But I also will say I know to an extent because of the nature of the film, there is a lot of predictability in it. But I will say there are a few things at the climax that I did not see coming. And I also like that they just went full insanity for those final moments. And it's like almost a completely different tone for the film, but it also weirdly works. And I also will warn people because this film comes out in theaters today, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is out right now as
Yeah.
of our recording and our posting.
Yes. So if people see this film, there is a mid-credit scene. So make sure you stick around for that. Matt Donato did not stick around for that. So I had to tell him about it later.
I had to get out of there to go to the party. No, I forget what I had
Yeah.
to do. Yeah, I once the credits hit, I'm like, shit, I gotta get out of here real quick.
Yeah. It's a very brief scene. It's fun, and I feel like the ending and the mid credit set up that they have an option to do a sequel if they want to. So I do hope the film does well because I would be very curious to see how they would continue the story.
So that is our, the first highlight. Let's get to. I'm just gonna jump right into Never After Dark as our second because you saw this before I did. I'll say
Mhm.
as part of the festival. Let's say I caught up with it after on a screener, And it's really well done J-horror, and it's really well done the balance of life and death and the way that Japanese horror confronts the afterlife, let's say. Like I think it's so beautiful, but also so scary at the same time in different
Mhm.
ways than American horror. Like American horror is pretty easy. It's you're seeing a ghost story and you just don't want to die. I think
Yeah.
the Japanese horror and a lot of Asian horror and stuff like that, it's so spiritual. And in the very opening moments of Never After Dark, like the afterlife isn't this horrifying thing because we have the lead character who is this, clairvoyant talking to the dead and all this stuff, talking to her sister who is dead
Mhm.
and is her partner. And it just sets up this kind of paranormal team from the beginning that you can root for in a way that the stakes are toyed with a little bit, but they're not gone because once the ghost story actually kicks into gear, the horror really does exist. So I was impressed with this movie in a way that I've been impressed with so many really good J horror movies of the past decade plus. The traditions are there, everything's there. So yeah, I was really taken by this one.
Yeah, I really like how it has kind of some of the classic hallmarks of what you expect from a ghost J horror film, where it involves a lot of kind of how traumatic events can alter the way a person exists in the afterlife. But this film also creates so much unique lore. Like, even just with the medium and the way that she works and the tools of her trade, it's stuff that I had never seen before. Like, she uses this really cool spinning wheel thing with a mirror on it, and it creates a moving image. And it's so like I wish we knew more about it. I mean, it's also fine that we don't know where that came from and how she got it, but it's such a cool tool that not only makes the film feel a little bit more unique, but it also adds some really cool visual interest. And this was also a film that involves a bad wig, but there was a reason for the bad wig, which I appreciated because at first, when I saw the wig and the weird haircut, I was like, what are we doing here? Why is this character have this hair? But as we learn more about how she does her job, it makes more sense, which I appreciated. But just yeah, like the lore that they created around the ghosts and around how she does her work, I think is so fascinating and it feels unique to other J horror films. And also the practical effects were surprisingly good in this one. Very creepy imagery that I still think about even though I saw this movie like 2 or 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah, the juxtaposition, I would say, of the horror versus the comedy, because this is a funny movie. It is. I don't want to give away too much, but I think there's a really beautiful scene where Jonathan Snipes, I believe, is the composer for the film, and he is part of the band group, whatever you want to call it, Clipping with Daveed Diggs and another producer, and he's a really talented musician. So he creates this like band within the movie that the main medium really likes. And
Mhm.
there's one night where basically like the medium has these rules. Never After Dark is one of them. The title is a reference to a rule of never dealing with this stuff after when the moon is out because the veil is thinnest and it's the most dangerous. And one day she's like, I just need a day off. And she just starts like slamming beers and dancing around the hotel that she's investigating. And it's this beautiful scene of a person kind of being in the worst scenario, dealing with their own feelings, dealing with their trauma. But the ghost is still there. Like this mutilated
Mhm.
ghost who you just kind of like said has a lot of great like cosmetic design and who is scary to look at. She's just like dancing around him as he's repeating his pattern. And I think that's like such a again, that is not an American horror thing. You
Mhm.
can't really play with those two warring tones, I would say, in a way that is not goofy as hell.
Yeah.
Like in this scene, like approaching it from a J horror lens, like they're both can be true. It can be frightening to see this thing just stalking behind her, but then like she has the power in this scene because the medium is just, as I said, like twirling around with a beer in her hand and dancing to this song that is like it's a banger. Like it's such a good song too. I immediately
Yeah.
looked it up to be like, oh, what band is this? I want to look them up, and it's like, no, it's an original. Great, amazing. So I think there's just a lot of creative dedication to the meticulous details of this and right down to even the candle she uses to cross
Mhm.
over into the spirit realm. And it's just it's been dripped over so many times. It looks worn, it looks weathered. It's the little things.
Yeah. Even the setting that they chose is an amazing decision because it was a hotel at one point, and now the woman who bought it and is the one that hired the medium plans to renovate it and basically turn it into her home. And it's in a very rural part of Japan. It is away from the little town, it's away from civilization, and it has like it feels very different than what you would expect from traditional Japanese architecture. It's a lot of really dark wood and it feels a little bit more ornate than you would expect from even a hotel of that era. And it almost ends up being kind of like a weird maze of sorts. I feel like even though there are parts that are just linear lines and stuff, there's something about it that kind of made me think a little bit of a very small version of the Overlook Hotel, where it kind of has that feeling where it almost feels like you're trapped there. Whether you realize it or not, you are not going to get out of this place because you are in this creepy place with a ghost. There are things around you, and there's also a rundown chapel on the property, which added an extra layer of creepy to it. But yeah, there's something about the seclusion of the place and the darkness and richness of it that added to the ambiance of the film, and I thought that was very beautifully done.
Yeah, I would call this my second favorite horror release at South by, which it means more than a usual year in South by because holy crap, it was stacked with genre. Like
Mhm.
I there were 20 something movies on my list and they were all horror just to start with. So I was like, how do I even fit in anything else? Like I did one non-horror review and I still almost hit 20 reviews. Like insane.
Yeah.
But I am gonna like I know you didn't get to see us at South by. You're gonna see it at Overlook, which we're both going to in a few weeks. Holy shit. But
Yes.
Hokum is I won't belabor it. I will do a quicker hit here, but Hokum it's the damn best thing I saw at South by. And I equate it to last year when I saw The Ugly Stepsister at Sundance, which
Mm,
was
mhm.
Sundance is in January. And I sat there and I'm like, I'm not gonna call this my easy favorite horror movie of the year, but it has a damn good shot at it because
Yeah.
there's still a lot of horror left to watch. I have the same thought about Hokum. I am sitting here right now going, there's a good chance this is my favorite horror movie of the year. Can't confirm it yet, obviously, because plenty of horror left. But Damian McCarthy, I don't like Caveat. I want to say that up front that I'm not like an easy sell in McCarthy. I like Oddity. Oddity's creepy. It's
Mhm.
got good atmosphere. I think it's doing a lot of Flanagan stuff, just on like a smaller scale, let's say. Hokum is just the next evolution in his filmmaking. His brand of Irish horror teaming with Adam Scott playing a drunk writer trying to go through his grief and wanting to go to the place that his family was last happy. So again, he goes to a hotel. I like the theme of hotels being these creepy places where things just kind of harbor. And he scatters ashes. And like where it goes from there is basically he just encounters a ghost story in the hotel. There's a honeymoon suite that's locked away. You can't go up there. And well, Adam Scott does. And it becomes this really contained, terrifying movie about a man confronting his demons in real life. And beautiful stuff. We're talking about witchcraft. We're talking about Irish culture and a lot of like, that kind of lore is folkloric. It's so commanding of the shadows. It's so good in like a The Conjuring James Wan-esque way where the shots just linger and
Mhm.
you know what's coming and it still is just such a scary reveal when there's a face behind a body or that quick shot. The stuff that is called a jump scare and because it is, but not in a derogatory way. Like when you actually implement jump scares correctly, they're your greatest tool. And I think with McCarthy's command over tone and ambiance first, the mood is just dreary as all hell and it keeps you going. But all those pieces together, I think Hokum is it's insane that in his third movie he has done something so clearly focused on being a just textbook horror movie and he nails it. So I am just over the moon with this movie. It's one of my favorite Adam Scott roles too. I think Adam Scott is
Mm.
exactly what he needs to be in this. He is sarcastic, he is down on himself, he's kind of an asshole, and yeah, that's important for the character he's playing. So I love this movie. I'm sorry.
No, and it's I actually just this morning reserved my ticket to see it at Overlook, so I am seeing it at Overlook. I'm very excited. I feel like I'm kind of in the minority where of the 2 films that I've seen of his so far, I actually prefer Caveat, but I still really love Oddity, and I think what I love about his work is that he is really good at creating an unsettling ambiance to his films. And those are the kinds of scares that typically get me more. It's when there's just this constant sense of dread and anticipation of what's going to happen next that stresses me out. And I do the thing where in horror movies, when I'm getting scared, I cover my ears because I'm expecting loud noises to scare me. And I get that sense of this film. And when he does have the occasional jump scare, it feels earned. It's something that, because a lot of jump scares, the ones that are kind of cheap and don't work are the ones that once you know they're there, they're not scary anymore upon rewatch. And I haven't rewatched Oddity since I first saw it, but I have rewatched Caveat. The couple of jump scares that are in there still get me. So I am very excited for that. And Adam Scott, it's I love when he does horror, so I'm excited to see this, especially since even though like you said, it sounds like he's kind of a sarcastic guy. I feel like typically he does horror that leans more comedy. So it'll be nice to see him in something that's a bit more of a straight serious horror film.
Yeah, I mean, like being in The Saviors, which also played South by. We got double Adam Scott
Mm,
at South by. I think that's the greatest juxtaposition of. I like funny Adam Scott. I like Ben
yeah.
Wyatt. I like all that stuff, but man, when he gets something to grapple with, and when he like really reaches into the depths of just depression and hate and that stuff, he pulls out something that like other people can't. So this is a good Adam Scott role, but we have a few more movies to talk about, I think, at least. So I'll let this run for another 13 minutes. We usually do these about 30 minutes, but we'll give you an extra 10 here because I want to talk about a movie that's not it's not horror, but we both saw it, and I think we were both like pretty high on it in a way that others weren't. I really like Normal. I had a great time with Normal.
Wait, other people didn't like Normal? I
I'm
didn't know this part.
I'm seeing ups and downs 100% because it
Okay,
played TIFF too, so there was reactions out there. So it was not glowing out of TIFF. So
interesting.
I
I guess maybe it's a different crowd too. Different types of critics seeing it there. But it's yeah, I mean it's very much not a horror film and it was one that I initially wasn't even planning to go see. I just saw it because it was the last day of the fest and it fit in to my schedule and there was nothing else at that time that I wanted to see. And it's so fun. It's so silly but it really leans into the like kind of silly sarcastic a lot of the time humor as well as having just it's so ridiculous the whole situation of this film and of this interim sheriff and the weird situation that he finds himself in the town called Normal. It's so outrageous but it somehow works really well and the action is really fun. And I know this is a lot of the same team that did Nobody, which I haven't seen that film, so I don't have it to compare. But I really enjoyed Normal so much more than I thought I was going to. I like him as this reluctant hero. It worked really well for him because you look at him and you don't think he's going to be this heroic action star, but it weirdly works because of the way they wrote his character.
Yeah, I will say that he is Bob Odenkirk. This is
Yes.
very much a Bob Odenkirk action thriller comedy. Everything is thrown in there, and I think that's what I wasn't ready for. Is I was expecting more of Nobody. I was expecting like a Nobody 2 even, and I like Nobody. I don't like Nobody 2. And I think there's a big gap between those two films. So I was wondering where Normal fits in. And I approached it because it's another Ben Wheatley movie. When I like Ben Wheatley, I really like Ben Wheatley. When I don't like Ben Wheatley, we are just completely off page with one another. So like I was nervous from that alone, but 100% it's Derek Kolstad writing the screenplay. So it's Wheatley directing Kolstad's screenplay. And what it basically turns into is Fargo meets Hot Fuzz meets The Last Stand. It's
100%.
it is this great little piece of Bob Odenkirk's character just wants to go to this Minnesota town, be the interim sheriff, not ruffle any feathers, and just get through his job. He's there for peace. And of course, he doesn't find peace. And like, I'm not going to say much about what goes wrong because I think that I won't say surprise because you find out in the first scene what's going on,
Yeah.
but still what it is and what you're not prepared for and what they're not telling you, I had so much fun with. And you're right, the action when it goes, it's like an explosion because once the bullets start flying, this movie is over the top. There's some decent gore, but like it's way more of like a neo-western. It's operating like
Mhm.
he is this old school western sheriff and he's just got to fight his way out of a town now of about 2000 people. So I
Yeah.
was not prepared for it. And it's just wholesome, it's sweet at the right moments. He's this really like, the Midwestern kind of vibe guy, and then it's just so violent at times too.
Yeah, and it's one of those films where you watch it and then you're like, "Wow, I can't believe Wheatley did this film." Because he has one of the weirdest filmographies. I feel like he is the one of the most varied filmographies of any director working or not working now. Like, to go from things like Kill List to then do The Meg 2 and then something like this. And, I think we talked about this before and you hadn't seen the film that was at Fantastic Fest last year, Bulk, which is another weird out there film for him, and it's just I don't understand how this man's brain works, but and I feel like not all of his films are hits. There are a few, like, stumbles along the way, but when it hits, it really hits, and I feel like Normal is an example of a hit for him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think this is one of his better movies in a while, and I again, I had a blast with this one. I described it as like I can't wait to show my dad this movie. It is one of
Yeah,
those just like dad core action movies. It's exactly what it wants to be, and I'm cool with that. But
and
you
actually, your comparison of Hot Fuzz is perfect because I didn't even think of that, and that actually would be a film then that I could easily show my parents because when I still lived with them, whenever we were trying to decide to watch a movie together, there were only 2 movies we could ever agree on: Hot Fuzz and Death Proof. Yeah, my parents have weird taste, but
the marriage, no,
yeah.
that marriage is perfect. What do you mean? Those are two great choices.
But yeah, so we watched a lot of Hot Fuzz. So I do think that Normal is something that like you could watch with your parents and everyone would have a good time.
Absolutely. Who doesn't love seeing a nail get shoved into somebody's eye? It's just wholesome for the family.
Yeah.
Um, we'll just hit a few quick ones now. Over Your Dead Body. Yeah. What do you think?
I think I was a little more lukewarm on that film than a lot of people were. Mostly just because of one specific scene that I won't get into because it is kind of spoilery, but it's a scene where they try to make something that isn't comedic at all into a comedic scene. And that's something that's been an issue for me with other films too. And it automatically is like, ugh, I think that is in very poor taste. But I mean, it's another like action comedy horror Samara Weaving joint, which I mean, she's having a hell of a year. And she's always great. And I also thought that the hateful chemistry between her and I can never remember how he pronounces his last name.
Siegel, Jason Siegel.
Siegel. It is Siegel. It looks weird, so I always feel like I'm saying it wrong. But yeah, their dynamic I thought was really great. Like just like the animosity and hatred between them, especially when they both realize what's happening at this cabin and what the everyone's plan is. I think that it feels very authentic and it's very funny. And so I loved that dynamic. But yeah, it was just mostly that one scene that it kind of ruined the film for me a bit.
No, I get it. And for those who don't know, Over Your Dead Body is Jorma Tacón's remake of The Trip by Tommy Wirkola, which is on Netflix
Mm.
and it's been out for a few years. And here's like I was wondering how people were going to react to that scene. I was also wondering how Yorma was going to approach that scene because it is kind of a rip from the first movie. There is a version of what you're talking about, and
Mhm.
without getting into it too much, but like yeah, there is definitely some poor tasteness about it that they try to get around. But I think in the original movie, this particular scene that ruffled feathers is a lot darker and it's not supposed to be funny. And like the
Mhm.
movie itself is not as comedic. So to me, Over Your Dead Body suffers a bit because the entire movie tries to veer more comedic away from this just pitch black, awful movie about two people who hate each other so much, having to fight
Mhm.
for survival, but still hating each other. Where Over Your Dead Body, it's two people who hate each other and did want to try to kill each other, but they get to the romantic rekindling quicker and they try
Yes.
to be funnier more. And I think that works for Samara and Jason, because I think Jason Segel, especially, we know him as Forgetting Sarah Marshall, How I Met Your Mother. We know this guy, and here he gets to be this like fucking Muppet Frankenstein of an asshole, like literally like waving inflatable tube man, just like angry all the time. And he does that really well. So I like that he did something different. I like that we got there,
Mhm.
but it's those moments where I keep I, I keep thinking of the darker version of what I'm seeing, and
Mhm.
I keep being like, that it just hits more. So I think I'm with you. I liked Over Your Dead Body, and it works because of Weaving a Seagull. But sorry, I shouldn't even say because of them. Timothy Olyphant too. Like there's
Yeah.
so Juliette Lewis right down the list. Like they're all Paul Guilfoyle. Oh my God, Pops is amazing.
Yes.
And
He's so funny.
so like it's a well cast film. It's doing a lot right. I think it's a fun little anti rom com, but yeah, the emotional value of it and like the real kind of stick in your gutness that the trip has is not here. And I think it is missing that. I'm fine with remakes taking different strikes, like absolutely change the tone. But I think
Mhm.
this change was, there was just some stuff that didn't work for me as well.
Yeah. And I think honestly, it probably helped my viewing experience that I actually hadn't seen The Trip, and I still haven't seen it. I will at some point just because I'm curious to see the differences. But yeah, I mean, it's weird to think that they took a film that stars Noomi Rapace and then remade it into a more comedic film because she is not known for comedic performances. So it's weird to think that she and Samara Weaving are playing the same character in essentially the same story, just with different tones.
Yeah, you'll see. I think my advice to anyone is watch The Trip after. That's going to be the
Mhm.
better way to watch it, because I just had the comparison in my head the whole time.
Yeah.
But I think, They Will Kill You, we can do really quickly. Like I liked it. I think it's chaos. I described it as like that stoner who orders Domino's and he clicks on every ingredient just for shits and giggles. Like that to me is the overindulgence that is They Will Kill You
Mhm.
in B movie form. It's gory as all hell. There's so much fun going on here. Zazie Beetz is so badass, and it's basically just
Mhm.
kind of this. I could throw out 20,000 references here because Kirill, the Russian director, like I love him having so much passion for movies,
Yeah.
but it's clear here he loves, Quentin Tarantino, therefore
Very much
loving
so.
like Lady Snowblood kind of Japanese samurai stuff, and then like translate that into The Raid, translate that into Ready or Not 2. Like there's a lot going on here that is cherry picked, I would say. And while I
Mhm.
think there is enough creativity and originality to get me through, it almost became predictable in its over the topness, because
Yes.
just scene by scene, it's like, okay, how crazy are we going to get here? And it's always, oh, the craziest. So oddly enough, I found myself getting numb to the craziness because there was nothing underneath. So I liked it. It was fun. It'll never be more than that to me.
Yeah, it's one of those films where it's if you're just reading the synopsis, it sounds almost exactly like Ready or Not 2, which came out the week before. So, but luckily, it's just those surface level things where it's about two sisters and they're having to fight for their lives against a cult of Satanists and stuff like. But that's really where the comparisons stop, which I was worried about going into this film, and I'm very glad that it was different. And it is. It very much feels like if Quentin Tarantino made a Ready or Not film, which isn't a bad thing. And it has that kind of like you said, Western, like cowboy, samurai, action, comedy, and it gets so outrageous. And I will say it's one of those films where if you want something that has a lot of meat to the plot, this isn't going to be the film for you. But if you're looking for something where you can just kind of shut off your mind and enjoy the action and the chaos and the carnage, then you're going to have a great time with the film. Because overall, I had a lot of fun with it. I would watch it again, but it's not like it's going to be winning an Oscar anytime soon or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a fun programmer with your friends. It's a fun thing to watch people react to. And to me,
Mhm.
it's a fun thing to put on the background where
Yes.
you're looking up at awesome shit the whole time. It cuts a hell of a trailer, but
Yes.
the whole package kind of just feels like scenes stitched together that are cool ideas, while the actual, I don't know, like there's so much tease that isn't even used here, where this entire like ecosystem within a giant building, and there's all this depravity and horribleness, and yet we don't really see any of it. It's a lot of talk and bluster,
Yeah.
and what we do see is crazy as shit, but it still doesn't like reach the full potential. So good stuff. Glad I
Yeah.
saw it. Had fun. And yeah, I think let's end on drag,
Mm.
because I think this is going to be an experimental film for a lot of people. It's this idea that if you don't know what drag is, which probably most of you don't, Lizzie Kaplan is playing a criminal. And in the very beginning of the movie, she throws out her back. So her sister, played by Lucy DeVito, has to drag her out of the house she broke into. And while this is happening, John Stamos comes home. That's the movie. Like that, sorry, it's
Yeah.
not John Stamos playing John Stamos. He's actually playing a psychopath artist, but it is very much villains to me. It is very much fresh. I can see kind of where this movie is pulling certain ideas from, but it's doing it in its own way. Like I kept laughing, like it felt like a halfway weekend at Bernie's just from hell, because Lucy DeVito is just dragging Lizzie Kaplan around, but she's not a dead body. Like she just can't walk. So she's still
Mhm.
experiencing pain. She's still being thrown downstairs, all this stuff. And I ended up liking it. I think Lizzie Kaplan here is A plus physical comedy.
Mhm.
Number one, laughed a lot, and that is because of her and the way she reacts to being in this awful scenario, and like just get the face planting alone. She
Oh my
sells
god,
it
yes.
so hard. So I had so much fun with that. And then yeah, once John Stamos gets introduced to the scenario, he's Psycho John Stamos, and when have we get to see that? So very, very Jai Courtney in Dangerous Animals. I want to
Oh,
say
for
that.
sure.
Like I laughed my ass off. I actually texted somebody who works at Shutter, and I was like, they might owe you royalties for John Stamos dancing in his underwear to a song like a psychopath, and it's so Jai Courtney in Dangerous Animals coded, but it still works. So for me, I know it sounds like something that's out there conceptually, but I think it's pulled off. I think it actually works here.
Yeah, I will say overall I enjoyed the film. I There were certain things that I was iffy about, but I am a chronic back pain sufferer, so I very much related to Lizzie Kaplan's character in this. And I do think that the whole like first half of the film is like body slapstick humor, because you see Lizzie Kaplan, since she can't move and she's being dragged around, she gets beat to shit basically by her sister on accident. And it's hilarious. And I do think that their sisterly relationship is written very, very well. Just kind of that love hate, like you're a fucking idiot. But you're my sister and I'm going to help you. But there were times that I thought DeVito wasn't as convincing in the role as Kaplan was. Um, but like I said, I think they're very well written. But then I think what got me was the tonal shift as soon as John Stamos entered the picture. It's not a bad thing. It just was kind of jarring to go from like very Three Stooges slapstick comedy type thing to then being this much more serious, oh God, what's going to happen? Are we all about to die kind of situation? And then the ending, we won't say what the ending is. The ending, I think, is going to polarize a lot of people.
I was
It,
once you
yeah,
mentioned the tonal shift, I was like, that was my thing too.
yeah.
Man, I want to get into that so bad, because I think that's a whole conversation. But I agree, it's a movie that is so funny for so long, and playing it with, I would say, lighthearted stakes.
Hmm.
It's goofy shit. It's Lucy DeVito, dragging this fucking husk of a sister and hitting a vase, and is the vase
Yeah,
gonna fall? Like it's Three Stooges esque almost in some
yeah,
instances, very silly. And then it's not, and then it's about like a sisterhood rift, let's say, between the older sister looking at a younger sister who has her life together, and like how that impacts their relationship and sacrifice and all these things. And that's not even before the ending that you just mentioned.
yeah.
And that ending is going to polarize a lot of people. And here's my thing. I think it got where it needed to get. Like, it's so weird to say this because people are going to see this movie probably in a fucking year. Like, I don't know who's going to put this out. It
Yeah.
doesn't have distro yet, but I think it gets to where it needs to get to based on the second to last choice. And
Mhm.
if you're listening to this podcast, just clip that out, save that for when you watch Drag. You'll know what I'm talking about. But I agree with you. I was not on board, and then I got back on board just because of where they ended it, and it was the only way they could save the movie.
Yeah, it definitely was one of the things that when the film ended at first, I was genuinely kind of pissed, but it was one of those things where the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Kind of like, I know a lot of people are going to agree with this, but it's kind of like how I felt about the ending of Promising Young Woman. I had to wait almost a month before I wrote a review for that film after I saw it because I had to mull over the way it ended. And it's not, the ending of Drag isn't as controversial and isn't going to be as polarizing, but it definitely is one of those things where it's going to take some processing before you can really decide how you feel about it.
Yeah, but again, worthwhile. So I think that's one.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be curious who snags that. I'm gonna be curious who
Yeah.
puts that one out, and it will. It's gonna go a little wider. It has Lizzie Kaplan alone as the star power.
Oh,
Composer Patrick Stump of Fallout Boy, produced by
so
the DeVito family, including Danny. There's so many funny little things.
and to have
Co-directed,
Stamos in a role like that too.
right?
Like,
Stamos
that's
in that
such a
role.
different role for him, and I love when psychopaths have a dance number. So, with, like, even though it is very similar to the dance number in Dangerous Animals, but an argument could be made that both of those are similar to the villain dance in Charlie's Angels.
7,000%. Yeah, yeah. Oh no, no,
I
we're going
love
down the
when
line.
villains have a dance, yeah, but I also think that this one is one that had really awesome production design too. Like, the house that it took place at was really cool, like this very modern estate kind of, I guess mid-century modern is probably the design style, out in the forest, and also the artwork because John Stamos' character is an artist, so there are a ton of paintings that he's done, quote unquote. Obviously, John Stamos didn't actually do these paintings, but there's something about them that's beautiful, but also kind of unsettling that adds to the ambiance of the film.
I can't wait for people to see this. This is
Yeah,
one I'm really gonna chart the reactions on because they're gonna be all over the place, and that's
yeah.
fun for me. Like, give me the movie that has all tens and zeros on ratings versus the just blanket fives and sixes. Man, take
Yeah.
risks, and I think Drag is one of those risks that. I saw some other risks at South by this year, movies I won't name that we didn't review and we didn't like, and Drag luckily is not one of those. So
Yeah. It is, at the very least, is gonna be a good conversation starter for people. Like, go see it with your friends when it does eventually come out, whether it gets a theatrical or a streaming release. See it with a group of people because you will have very interesting conversations after seeing the film.
interesting is the word. Hopefully, this was an interesting conversation about what you can look out for in the coming. It's funny, like in the coming weeks for some of these movies that have
Mhm.
distribution and are going to be hitting either theaters or Shutter or any kind of service, or the ones like Drag that we have no idea when it's going to be coming out. Could be next year, could be the year after. It's always the gamble when we do these festivals, but I appreciate you sticking this one out with me, Molly. Please, as always, tell the people where they can find you and your work.
Yes, you can find me on most social media just by searching my name, Molly Henry. Just make sure you don't forget the extra E in my last name. I know that makes it very confusing. It confuses me too. And the only exception is Twitter, which I don't use very much anymore. But on there, I am at Blogging Banshee. But everywhere else, it's just Molly Henry. Makes it easy to find me.
I am one half of your Mats here at Certified Forgotten, as always, at Donatobomb, DONATOBOMB. And that's going to be Blue Sky, Letterboxd, and Instagram mostly. I finally finished all my South by reviews, all 17 of them or whatever. So they are up. They're on Daily Dead and The Wrap. And yeah, we're gearing up for Overlook. We'll be in New Orleans before we know it, have a few more movies to review. And if you like the podcast, give us a little like, give us a little share. Yeah, exactly. Hell yeah. Pro podcast. I'm gonna say that's pro podcast, not anti podcast.
He's very excited
He's
about
very
it.
excited about it, and you should be just as excited. And also, if you like the podcast, go check out Certified Forgotten, the website, where we have plenty of articles hitting all the time about indie horror, deeper dives on more known horror and, I don't know, just the writing that we want to read. So hit the website, share the podcast, do all the things, and we will be back next week.